The Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, the Angelicum, was established as a result of the critical need of the Church to have well-trained seminarians, religious and lay, in the teachings and doctrine of the faith. As the only pontifical university in Rome that teaches both English and Italian, she is also conveniently located just a few short steps from the Vatican, in the Eternal City. Founded in the 13th century by the Order of Preachers, much care was taken to set up this academic and spiritual structure properly in response to the Church's needs. As a result, a significant count of noble Dominicans have graced the halls of this illustrious institution, leaving their mark not only at their Roman alma mater, but etched in the pages of history. Today, the demand by the Church continues as it faces unprecedented challenges. For that reason, the Angelicum has imported world-class scholars from around the globe to continue the Dominican legacy of imparting their wisdom on to the next generation.
L'Angelicum offre des possibilités extraordinaires pour s'enraciner dans la tradition de l'ordre.
It was more important for me to immerse myself in the tradition of the Church, especially in the tradition of Thomas Aquinas, which is an area that wasn't emphasized at my previous university.
Sono qui all'Angelicum a concludere i miei studi di dottorato e sono molto contenta di questa mia esperienza, soprattutto perché mi dà la possibilità di vivere da domenicana con i domenicani. Sono contenta non solo per la qualità degli studi, che è molto importante.
In addition to her programs, the Angelicum currently houses 6 institutes and 1 center: the Historical Institute of the Order of Preachers, the Mater Ecclesiae Advanced Institute of Religious Studies, the John Paul II Center for Interreligious Dialogue, the Institute of Spirituality, the Thomistic Institute, the Institute for Ecumenical Studies, and the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, named after her most illustrious alumnus. The student body actively engages in their university through activities like their publication, La Parola. And graduates stay connected with their alma mater and engage not only through social media, but also through the monthly e-blasts and the Angelicum magazine. As one of her most notable professors stresses the need of proper formation when he states, "By things visible and bodily, a spiritual salvation is served. For visible things of this kind are instruments, so to say, of a God who was made flesh and suffered." That is why the student life is enriched not only by the academics, but also a Christ-centered prayer life with adoration and daily Mass. It is not a surprise that bishops from around the world send their seminarians, religious, and students to receive this distinct world-class education.
Our record is great. We have about 140 cardinals, archbishops and bishops who came out of the Angelicum.
For that reason, the mission of the Angelicum remains constant throughout the centuries, helping meet the demands of the Church with its premier world-renowned professors and curriculum, where faith and reason work together to form students as virtuous leaders capable of evangelization and promoting integral human development that praise God by their example and set the world on fire. For more information on the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, the Angelicum, please log on to angelicum.it.
Excellency, Eminency, Reverend Fathers and Sisters, Professors and students of the Angelicum, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pontifical University of St. Thomas, the Angelicum in Rome. It is with great emotion that I greet you at the beginning of our event on the 100th anniversary of the birth of Karol Wojtyła, the opening ceremony of the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. Karol Wojtyła is the most famous and the most outstanding student of the Angelicum. To open a new institution under his patronage is an honor and a great source of joy for our university. But for a rector who happens to be Polish and who may be considered to belong to the JP2 generation, there is an additional deep wellspring of joy. Thanks to the online connection, we will be celebrating today together with the representatives of the Polish foundations, St. Nicholas and Futura-Iuventa, and its strategic benefactors, with the provincial of the Polish Dominican province, all of whom are joining us from Warsaw. Professor Remy Bragg, who will present his opening conference from Paris. Let me introduce you briefly to where we are, or perhaps much more, why we are where we are. Karol Wojtyła prepared his doctoral dissertation while studying at the Angelicum from 1946 to 1948. Actually, he must have had classes in the space in which we are celebrating today. As John Paul II, he came to the Angelicum twice. By the way, before those visits, he kept coming back quite regularly as bishop and cardinal to see his professors, especially Father Felix Bednarski. During these visits in 1979 and 1997, he delivered very substantial discourses to the academic community. Before we start to enjoy the presence among us of our distinguished guests, let me mention another anniversary. In a couple of weeks, on the 2nd of June, we will have the 40th anniversary of the famous address presented by John Paul II in the headquarters of UNESCO in Paris. John Paul II was the first Roman pontiff to address in person this noble organization. Let me recall only one phrase from this extremely rich and important discourse, the phrase repeated at the beginning and at the end of this talk, the crucial phrase that gives to this address its tone and unity. Genus humanum arte et ratione vivit. Man lives a really human life thanks to culture. Do I need to add that our most illustrious alumnus found this phrase in the work of the Doctor Angelicus? In fact, one can see through his whole pontificate a very consistent drive for a Thomistic understanding of the relationship between reason and faith, a deep conviction of the crucial role of philosophy in creating a possibility for dialogue with contemporary culture, and a stress on the critical role of anthropological discussion. The Institute of Culture, set up at the Faculty of Philosophy of our university, has an obvious and important place in this Thomistic and Wojtylian program. Let's all be thankful to God today for the life and work of Karol Wojtyła, John Paul II. And let's be thankful that this gratitude may take so concrete and palpable a form today. First of all, I want to thank all those who have made the project of the new institute a reality. As we know, the Dominicans have sometimes a problem with taking the step from potency to act. I think with great gratitude of Dariusz Karłowicz, Joanna Paciorek and Mateusz Bednarkiewicz from the foundations St. Nicholas and Futura-Iuventa. Your courageous ideas and efficient commitment to this project inspired us and released the energy needed to bring it to life. I want to greet in a special way Mrs. Jolanta and Mr. Mirosław Gruszka, Krzysztof Domaracki, Wojciech Piasecki, the strategic sponsors of this enterprise. Without your generosity, we wouldn't be celebrating today. But I also want to mention the help of my brothers in the order. This project would not have been possible without the openness and cooperation of Father Serge Thomas Bonino, the Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy, and Father Paweł Kozacki, the Provincial of the Polish Province. I'm very thankful as well to Father Ryszard Rybka for having accepted to be the first director of the Institute. Now it's the high time for the most important message of the evening. As many of you know, we have received a message from Pope Francis for this opening celebration. May I invite Archbishop Jan Romeo Pawłowski, the head of the third section in the Secretary of State, who accepted to be the special envoy of His Holiness, to come forward and to present the letter of the Pope to us. Please, Archbishop.
Grazie Padre Rettore, una buona sera a tutti. Sono non soltanto l'attore del messaggio del Santo Padre, ma anche del suo saluto benedicente a tutti quanti sono qui presenti e a quanti sono connessi con noi attraverso i mezzi di moderna comunicazione. Ecco la lettera del Papa. Al caro fratello Michał Paluch, Ordo Predicatorum, rettore della Pontificia Università di San Tommaso d'Aquino. Nel giorno in cui ricorre il centenario della nascita di San Giovanni Paolo II, il più illustre alunno di codesta università, viene inaugurato all'Angelicum, presso la Facoltà di Filosofia, l'istituto di cultura a lui intitolato. Desidero esprimere il mio apprezzamento per questa iniziativa e rivolgere un cordiale saluto all'intera comunità accademica e a quanti sono convenuti per l'evento, in particolare ai rappresentanti delle due fondazioni polacche, Futura-Iuventa e St. Nicholas, che sostengono il nuovo istituto. Esso ha come finalità principale la riflessione sulla cultura contemporanea. A tale scopo i promotori intendono avvalersi della collaborazione dei più eminenti filosofi, teologi e uomini e donne di cultura nella sua più vasta espressione. E San Giovanni Paolo II è di quest'opera al tempo stesso l'ispiratore e il primo e più importante artefice, con il ricco e multiforme patrimonio che ha lasciato e prima ancora con l'esempio del suo spirito aperto e contemplativo, appassionato di Dio e dell'uomo, del creato, della storia e dell'arte. Le sue varie esperienze di vita, tra cui segnatamente i drammi epocali e le sofferenze personali, interpretate nella luce dello spirito, lo condussero a sviluppare con singolare profondità la riflessione sull'uomo e sulle sue radici culturali, come riferimento imprescindibile per ogni proclamazione del Vangelo. Nella sua prima enciclica infatti scrisse: «Ci accostiamo in pari tempo a tutte le culture, a tutte le concezioni ideologiche, a tutti gli uomini di buona volontà. Ci avviciniamo con quella stima, quel rispetto e quel discernimento che sin dai tempi degli Apostoli contrassegnavano l'atteggiamento missionario e del missionario. Basta ricordare San Paolo e ad esempio il suo discorso davanti all'Areopago di Atene. L'atteggiamento missionario inizia sempre con un sentimento di profonda stima di fronte a ciò che c'è in ogni uomo e per ciò che egli stesso, nell'intimo del suo spirito, ha elaborato riguardo ai problemi più profondi e più importanti. Si tratta di rispetto per tutto ciò che in lui ha operato lo Spirito, che soffia dove vuole. Enciclica Redemptor Hominis e discorso anche all'UNESCO. Abbiamo bisogno di tenere vivo questo atteggiamento se vogliamo essere Chiesa in uscita, Chiesa che non si accontenta di conservare e amministrare l'esistente, ma vuole essere fedele alla sua missione. Sono molto lieto che questa iniziativa si realizzi nell'Università San Tommaso d'Aquino. L'Angelicum infatti ospita una comunità accademica costituita da professori e studenti provenienti dal mondo intero ed è un luogo adatto per interpretare le importanti sfide delle culture di oggi. La tradizione dell'ordine domenicano, con il ruolo importante che vi occupa la riflessione razionale sulla fede e i suoi contenuti, articolata in modo magistrale dal dottore Angelico, non può che favorire tale progetto affinché sia caratterizzato dal coraggio della verità, della libertà di spirito e dall'onestà intellettuale. Con questi auspici rinnovo il mio incoraggiamento e la mia riconoscenza a lei, caro fratello, e a quanti hanno dato vita al nuovo istituto, a professori, studenti e personale. Auguro buon lavoro e invio di cuore la benedizione apostolica. Papa Francesco, Roma, San Giovanni in Laterano, 18 maggio 2020. Ecco, a questo messaggio il padre Rettore ha chiesto di aggiungere una parola, ma diceva che sia molto breve perché sono diversi coloro che devono intervenire. Allora davvero mia breve parola auspicando che gli altri facciano altrettanto. E cioè noi spesso contempliamo, e credo che presso questo nuovo istituto sarà contemplato Papa Giovanni Paolo II, San Giovanni Paolo II, uomo di preghiera, uomo di fede, uomo di cultura, uomo di e uomo di. Ma soprattutto credo che dobbiamo soffermarci su ciò che è avvenuto esattamente 100 anni fa, più o meno a quest'ora, a Wadowice. È nato un uomo, Karol Wojtyła. Sono passati 100 anni e la sua eredità è immensa. E quest'uomo ha marcato la storia del mondo, la cultura del mondo, la religione del mondo, il futuro del mondo. E perciò io auspico che contemplando, leggendo, scoprendo, essendo accompagnati da quest'uomo, Karol Wojtyła, Papa Giovanni Paolo II, San Giovanni Paolo II, possiamo presso questo istituto scoprire l'uomo in vari diversi aspetti della sua esistenza, della sua storia, e scoprire Dio, di cui uomo, sacerdote, vescovo, Papa Karol Wojtyła fu eccellente testimone. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Your Grace, for having reminded us about this universal dimension of the man, Karol Wojtyła. We are very honored that we also have among us this evening Cardinal Stanisław Ryukko, Archpriest of the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore since 2016, and before that President of the Pontifical Council for the Laity over many years. Perhaps most important of all for us this evening, given the nature of our celebration, he is also the President of the John Paul II Foundation, with its headquarters in Rome. I should add that Stanisław Ryukko was ordained to the priesthood by Cardinal Karol Wojtyła. Please, Eminence, the floor is yours.
Porgo un deferente saluto a tutti voi che partecipate a questo solenne atto di inaugurazione dell'Istituto di Cultura presso la Facoltà di Filosofia della Pontificia Università San Tommaso d'Aquino. Mi congratulo per questa preziosa iniziativa sia con le autorità di questo illustre Ateneo, nella persona del suo rettore magnifico, padre professore Michał Paluch, sia con i partner strategici che l'hanno concretamente sostenuta, la Fondazione di San Nicola e la Fondazione Futura-Iuventa. Il nuovo istituto è intitolato in maniera significativa a San Giovanni Paolo II e non è un caso. Nella vita e nel magistero di questo pontefice il problema della cultura si presenta come uno dei temi centrali. Nel suo famoso discorso pronunciato nella sede dell'UNESCO a Parigi, Giovanni Paolo II disse: «L'uomo vive la sua vita veramente umana grazie alla cultura. La vita umana è cultura, nel senso anche che l'uomo si distingue e si differenzia attraverso essa da tutto ciò che esiste per altra parte del mondo visibile. L'uomo non può essere fuori della cultura. La cultura è ciò per cui l'uomo, in quanto uomo, diventa più uomo, è di più, accede di più all'essere. Su tale sfondo emerge in maniera chiara una particolare vocazione di ogni università, quale comunità di professori e studenti che si metta al servizio di una cultura degna di questo nome, di una cultura che è una vera linfa vitale per l'uomo, che promuove la sua dignità, che lo fa crescere nella sua umanità e lo aiuta ad essere di più come persona umana. Perciò il nuovo Istituto di Cultura che oggi inauguriamo non è una mera aggiunta alla struttura già molto ricca di questo Ateneo, ma direi il suo cuore pulsante, che ricorda ciò che è essenziale per ogni università, essere cioè una diaconia del pensiero, una diaconia della verità, diaconia della sapienza, diaconia appunto della cultura. Oggi celebriamo il centenario della nascita di San Giovanni Paolo II. Questo nuovo istituto di cultura diventa così una specie di dono di compleanno che la sua alma mater offre al suo insigne allievo. Un dono a lui certamente molto gradito. Sono convinto che questa sera San Giovanni Paolo II ripeterebbe le stesse parole con le quali concluse il suo discorso all'UNESCO. Sì, l'avvenire dell'uomo dipende dalla cultura. E poi aggiunse: non cessate, continuate, continuate sempre. Allora, tanti auguri al nuovo istituto e non cessate, dunque continuate, continuate sempre. Auguri. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. I now invite Father Pablo Siculi to take the floor. Pablo Siculi is the assistant to the Master of the Dominican Order for the Intellectual Life. Pablo will present a greeting to us on behalf of himself and of Gerard Timoner, the Master of the Dominican Order. Pablo will be joining us from Santa Sabina. Please, Pablo.
Thank you very much. Your Eminence, Excellency, dear brothers and sisters in charge under the service of our Pontifical University, St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, especially Brother Michael Paluk, Rector, Brother Serge Thomas Bonino, Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy, Brother Richard Ryukko, Director of the New Institute, dear representatives of the St. Nicholas and Futura-Iuventa Foundations in Poland, dear professors, students, and friends of our university. In the name of the Master of the I thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this event of the inauguration of the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. I know we have little time, and so I would like to share with you just a short paragraph from the Master of the Order on this new institute. Allow me to read it in Italian, the original language of the text. Il fulcro di questo istituto, dice il maestro dell'ordine, Fra Gerard, si posiziona all'interno della riflessione sulla cultura contemporanea. L'università vuole invitare a collaborarvi non solo filosofi e teologi stimati e celebrati, ma anche altri esponenti delle diverse espressioni della cultura e delle culture umane. E San Giovanni Paolo II, con il suo patrimonio di pensiero, dovrebbe diventare partner della dinamica del dibattito e del confronto. Siamo fiduciosi che ciò permetterà di scrutare con nuova freschezza le grandi intuizioni dell'eminente ex alunno e dottore della nostra università. L'istituto vorrebbe essere inoltre un'occasione per focalizzare l'attenzione e la riflessione di tutta l'università sulla nozione di cultura, così importante sia nel recente Magistero della Chiesa dopo il Concilio Vaticano II, Gaudium et Spes, numero 53, come nell'attuale pontificato di Papa Francesco, il quale ci ha ricordato, facendo in ciò eco al famoso adagio di San Tommaso d'Aquino sul rapporto fra natura e grazia, gratia supponit naturam, non destruit sed perficit eam, che, e queste sono le parole di Papa Francesco, la grazia suppone la cultura e il dono di Dio si incarna nella cultura di chi lo riceve. Evangelii Gaudium 115. The Master of the Order and we all hope that the activities of this new institute may bear much fruit, not only within the Faculty of Philosophy, but for the whole university in its service to the universal church and to human society as a whole, in this most relevant field of culture, in its comprehensive sense and in its diverse expressions, engaging in a fruitful dialogue from the perspective of Christian faith and of the Dominican intellectual charism. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Pablo, for having been with us. The floor now belongs to Father Serge Thomas Bonino, the Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy at our university. I want to stress that he has received this project from the beginning with great openness.
It's a great honor for our Faculty of Philosophy to welcome the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. But maybe you are intrigued. Why is the new institute connected with the Faculty of Philosophy? And moreover, with this Faculty of Philosophy here at the Angelicum? Let St. John Paul II himself respond to the first question. In his encyclical Fides et Ratio, a true charter of Christian culture, he precisely invites philosophy not to limit itself to parochial problems, but to revive its proper dimension as wisdom. For him, philosophy is not a closed discipline. It's a true wisdom, and as such, it keeps vital relationships with all other aspects of human culture, literature, sciences, religion. The second question, why this Faculty of Philosophy? There is first an answer which is purely factual, contingent, and therefore not very philosophical. John Paul II attended our university. There is a second, deeper answer, namely the Thomistic specificity of our faculty. Our faculty has been founded in 1882 in the wake of the great encyclical Aeterni Patris, on Christian philosophy, where Pope Leo XIII proposed Aquinas as a model, and the faculty was entrusted to the order of the preachers, which retained Thomism as an essential element of its intellectual and spiritual tradition. Therefore, from the beginning until today, our faculty intended to implement a living Thomism for the service of the Church's cultural mission. But what does that mean? Thomism is a medieval doctrine reconstructed through a rigorous historical study. But this doctrine is not a museum piece. Despite its limitation, St. Thomas reached some fundamental principle in the metaphysical and moral order, so that his doctrine is able, by its very universality, to assimilate and enlighten new truths emerging as the historical development of cultures unfolds. This is Thomism as intended by John Paul II. On the one hand, he wanted to enrich historical Thomism with the contribution of phenomenology and especially of personalism. And on the other hand, he calls for the passage from the phenomenon to the foundation, that is, to the philosophy of being. We face a great challenge, he said in Fides and Ratio, to move from phenomenon to foundation, a step as necessary as it is urgent. We cannot stop short at experience alone. Even if experience does reveal the human being's interiority and spirituality, speculative thinking must penetrate to the spiritual core and the ground for which it rises. Hence, the recommendation John Paul II addressed to the students of our university on the 17th of November 1979, when he said, "The philosophy of St. Thomas deserves to be attentively studied and accepted with convictions by the youth of our day, by reason of its spirit of openness and of universalism. The basis and source of this openness lies in the fact that the philosophy of St. Thomas is a philosophy of being, that is, of the actus essendi, whose transcendental value paves the most direct way to rise to the knowledge of subsisting being and pure act, namely to God. It is from this proclamation of being that the philosophy of St. Thomas derives its ability to grasp all that shows itself to the human intellect as a determinate existing being in all the inexhaustible richness of its content." Our faculty is very proud of following this exhortation of the Holy Pope, and that is why it welcomes this promising collaboration with the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge Thomas. Now we turn to greet our partners in Poland, giving the floor at first to Jarosław Głodek, the socius of the Polish province, Dominican province, Paweł Kozacki. I want to express my gratitude for your efforts in looking for collaborators for this project in the Polish province for the next 5 years. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. We are very happy to participate in that project, although I got to say that at the beginning, we thought, oh no, again, they are asking for more people. We already gave them Wojciech Giertek, Michael Paluch, and who is next? I mean, all the good people are going to Rome. So we hesitate a little bit, but then we realized that that project is very much in tune what is needed in the church and also what is needed in our province. We need that institute, and it's of utmost importance for us to have that kind of institute, because we are doing the things that that requires a certain guidance, a criteria. Of course, we have already done a lot in that field, but we have a Tertium Millennio Institute of Pater Maciej Zięba. We have publishing house of Drodze, Thomistic Institute, Liturgical Institute. I also want to mention the one thing of Father Jan Gura. He was a personal friend of John Paul II, and he created the whole movement, youth movement, and they are gathering every year 100,000 young people. And he was very much engaged in the dialogue of culture, and he was inspired by John Paul II. And I think I'm mentioning him because we think that what we could give in that collaboration with the Institute of Culture, it's that a little bit of empirical, experimental dimension to it. That is that we really need to make a reflection on how we are engaged in that apostolic work. How are we doing? I mean, is it against the culture, with the culture, inside of the culture? We have some question. Are we doing well or not? Are we too much floating with the culture, or should we be more countercultural? Like, for instance, recently one of our fathers was engaged in the commenting computer games. And is it okay or is it not? Should we be against it or in favor of it? And that reminds me the situation in the 16th century when our missionaries were coming back from the New World, and they were bringing to the University of Salamanca the question, who is a human person? Should they be engaged in the dialogue with the Indian culture, or should they change it? We have the same question, and we want some answers from you. I mean, we want some criteria, some tools, how we gonna discern those choices. So we are very much looking into that collaboration, not only from point of view that we are giving some people as managers, as theologians, as philosophers to that institute, but we want to be that experimental part of that project, that we could say the human lab, that you could make some experiment and check, is it working or not? Do we have some questions, some problems to solve? So we are very much looking forward to that collaboration in that field. If we could make it practical or theoretical, we don't care. We just feel that we really need that institute, and we hope you need us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jarosław. You need answers, we need people. We will find a way forward, we hope. The first director of the new institute will be Father Ryszard Rybka, Professor of Moral Theology at our university. Special thanks to the Dean of the Faculty of Theology, Sister Katrin Joseph Drozde, for this cooperation between the faculties during the first year. Ryszard, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and a cordial greeting to all those participating in this important event in the Aula Minor, and also to all those participating through the internet. The St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, which we inaugurate today, will be a beautiful and significant tribute to this extraordinary Pope on the centenary of his birth. I am convinced that all of us, participants in this great event, and each of us personally, feel indebted to the St. John Paul II, because in different ways he has deeply marked our lives. We have been enriched by his great personality and enlightened by the depth of his teaching. For many of us, St. John Paul II has become a teacher and a spiritual guide. When Cardinal Wojtyła was elected Pope, I was still a university student. I have never forgotten his first pilgrimage to Poland in 1979, which profoundly changed my homeland and started profound changes in Central and Eastern Europe. The strong and unequivocal words spoken by the Holy Pontiff in Warsaw still echo in my ears. And I cry, I who am a son of the land of Poland, and who am also Pope John Paul II, I cry from all the depths of this millennium, I cry on the vigil of Pentecost. Let your spirit descend. Let your spirit descend and renew the face of the earth, the face of this land. I can say without exaggeration that St. John Paul II helped me to discover the importance of faith and the beauty of the Church of Christ. Thanks to him, I discovered my vocation to religious and priestly life. His long and extraordinary pontificate reached in the depth of his theological, philosophical, and social doctrine has influenced and is influencing to date my scientific research and my teaching at this Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, the Angelicum. The St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, officially inaugurated today on the centenary of the birth of the Pope, is a visible sign of our gratitude to him. I want to thank all those who have worked in different ways to give life to this important and significant work. A special thank you to the founders and the benefactors for their generosity and great organizational capacity and enormous spiritual and material generosity. It is a great honor for me to be the first director of this institute. I am convinced that the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture will achieve its goals by spreading the thought of this great pontiff not only among the students of this university, but also to all the young people of the world. I also believe that this institute will become an effective tool for seeking, together with St. John Paul II, solutions to the various urgent problems of the contemporary world. This is why we ask St. John Paul II to intercede to the Lord to fill this initiative with graces and blessings, which wants nothing more than to translate the Pauline admonition of truth with charity and the charity of the truth. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Richard. I hope that now you know enough about what we want to do and what we want to achieve. So it's high time to sign our agreement in Warsaw and in Rome. It will be signed in Warsaw by the representatives of the Futura-Iuventa Foundation, Dr. Mateusz Bednarkiewicz, and of the St. Nicholas Foundation, Joanna Paciorek and Dr. Dariusz Karłowicz, and in Rome by the rector of the Angelicum. So one can see many things are possible. Once we have accomplished this crucial step, we should get to know the real heroes of this event better, those without whom we would not have been having this ceremony today. I invite Dariusz Karłowicz, one of the initiators of this project, philosopher, lecturer at the University of Warsaw, president of the St. Nicholas Foundation, to address us on behalf of both the foundations and to introduce Dr. Mateusz Bednarkiewicz, please.
Eminences, Excellences, Reverend Fathers and Sisters, professors and students of the Angelicum, honorable donors of St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of two Polish non-governmental organizations, namely the Futura-Iuventa Foundation and the St. Nicholas Foundation, I would like to express my most sincere gratitude to the authorities of the Angelicum, especially to the rector of the university, Father Professor Michał Paluch, and to the dean of the Faculty of Philosophy, Father Professor Serge Thomas Bonino, for the kind acceptance of our initiative to establish St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. I would also like to thank wholeheartedly Father Professor Ryszard Ryukko for his agreeing to stand at the head of this institution. The inauguration is a proper time to thank the donors of St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, Ms. and Mr. Jolanta and Mirosław Gruszka, Mr. Krzysztof Domaracki, and Mr. Wojciech Piasecki. It's your courage, your generosity, and great commitment to the heritage of St. John Paul II that gave us a chance to meet here today and start the history of a new institute. Please accept my deepest gratitude. Mission of the John Paul II Institute of Culture is to provide reflection on issues that are the most significant for the Church and contemporary world, as seen in the light of the thought of a great Pope. We are convinced that John Paul II output is far too important to leave it solely to the historians of his pontificate. We cannot allow the vibrant, inspiring thought to be put into the museum. Therefore, our reflection on John Paul II's work must be accompanied by reflection conducted together with him. That's why our motto is as follows: thinking together with John Paul II on the most important question of our time. And this is the undertaking which we invite professors and students of the Angelicum, as well as the intellectuals from all over the world. Thank you very much for your attention. I give a floor to my colleague, the philosopher and director, Dr. Mateusz Bednarkiewicz, president of the Futura-Iuventa Foundation. Mateusz, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dariusz. I'll be short. Just would like to thank everyone, especially your eminences, excellences, Father Rector, for this kind invitation for Futura-Iuventa Foundation. I'm more than happy at the moment. It's a great honor and commitment that Futura-Iuventa Foundation will continue the work of its founder and my late father, Maciej Bednarkiewicz, who served for John Paul II Foundation for many years. We treat this privilege to build this institute together with Angelicum and St. Nicholas Foundation as a huge gift and challenge. Intellectual and spiritual heritage of St. John Paul II, which Holy Father Francis has described so beautifully today in his letter, is still ahead of us. Like the mystery of the man that he has mentioned. I do believe that the Institute will try for all of us to fulfill the legacy of this great Pope that has formed all of us that are here. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Foundations cannot exist without benefactors. We have the pleasure to have with us this evening the strategic benefactors who have made our dreams possible. Let's start with Jolanta and Mirosław Gruszka. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello and buonasera. We are Jolanta and Mirosław Gruszka. We wish all of you warm greetings from Poland. We both grew up with John Paul II. We are now and here because of him and for him. Our donation is a way to repay the debt we owe him. We believe that Europe and the whole world need now more than ever to breathe with the lungs of Christianity. We pray that the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture in Rome at Angelicum will become a source of this breathing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. Now, Krzysztof Domorecki has the floor, please.
When I was invited by Dariusz Karlowicz to support this idea of the Institute, I asked myself, what does it mean to think together with John Paul II? And many of texts and statements that have appeared recently on the media environment present the work and works of John Paul II as a part of good past. Meanwhile, the great and by many undiscovered value of his works is that they have strengths to help us to find a better solution, not only for the past, but for the present and for the future. The Institute starts at the very special time when our rapidly developing civilization has increasingly stronger internal problems resulting from disregard of basic anthropological rules. Our civilization has chance to rapidly grow for next 30 to 50 years just due to fact that many people in many countries are working hard just to improve quality of their life. And at the same time, many technologies are in a relatively early stage of development. All these technologies accumulated together have enormous potential to transform all aspects of our lives. How we work, how we relax, how we pray, and how we raise our children. Technology is part of the culture, but technologists can easily forget about it. However, even the best technology has no human salvation potential. It can give him a lot, but if used incorrectly, it can harm us. So I believe that exercises and lectures at the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture will help its students to develop and propose gospel solution to the world by John Paul II. I do believe that learning from John Paul II and thinking together with him can help all of us to build a better world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both messages. I would say that this part of our ceremony would normally have ended with a standing ovation. Unfortunately, we will only be able to do that in the future. So, well, we are waiting to have you as guests in Rome. We have had the chance to listen to some of the key actors in the creation of this institute and to taste some of the different aspects of the projects that we are starting today. So now we should just start it. I'm very pleased and honored to introduce the first guest lecturer of the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. It will be presented this evening by Professor Rémy Braque. He is a French historian of philosophy and Professor Emeritus of Arabic and Religious Philosophy at the Sorbonne and the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich. Rémy Braque has been awarded both the Grand Prix of Philosophy from the French Academy and the Ratzinger Award, which is often referred to as the Theological Nobel Prize. Cardinal Camillo Ruini, who at the time was the president of the Ratzinger Foundation's academic committee, praised him as, quote, a true philosopher and at the same time a great historian of cultural thought who unites a profound and unequivocal Christian and Catholic faith to his speculative ability and historical vision, end quote. Rémy Braque will be one of the visiting professors of the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture in 2020-2021. Professor Rémy Braque.
Well, first of all, thank you for your invitation to speak, and apologies for my not being able to deliver this talk in Polish, but in an English of sorts. But I was asked to give some thoughts on Europe in the spirit ad mentem, as the Latin idiom has it, the former Pope St. John Paul II. One may ask, and some people do ask, why the heck should we bother about the teachings on Europe of a Pope? Other competences might be more apposite. We should learn from historians, sociologists, political scientists, rather than from a cleric. If the latter has anything to tell us as such, and if we are ready to listen to him, isn't he expected to teach on theological questions? Now, generally meaning, and in the teeth of all appearances, popes are in a position which enables them to make meaningful comments on the world at large, and especially on European affairs. The fact that the Catholic Church has spread all over the world, and as a consequence, that popes have to receive bishops from each and every country, gives them a better knowledge of present issues than many press agencies. Furthermore, the very lack of material interests and political power enables them to climb to a neutral vantage point. As for Europe, the situation compels them to keep a balance between Europe and the rest of the world. For obvious reasons, the Holy See is located in Rome, hence in Europe. By this token, popes are likely to pay special attention to the problems which beset the region which lies nearest to them. On the other hand, they must reduce the problems which Europe has to cope with down to their real scale, i.e., a part of the West, which is itself a part of a far larger whole. They see Europe on the backdrop of the whole show. John Paul II had special reasons to emphasize the relevance of European problems. His hailing from Poland enhanced in him insensitivity to the fragile character of what is European and to the decisive part played by culture in the life of a people. His native country is at the brim of Europe, next to a country like Russia, which saddles Europe and Asia, so that for its intellectuals, in which one to pigeonhole their country has been a living issue for centuries. Being European is something that French, Italian, or German people take for granted. For a Pole, on the other hand, being European is the result of a conscious and voluntary choice. Poland was divided into 3 parts for 1.5 centuries. During this long period, the unity of the people was kept by the common language, the common Catholic faith, the common keeping of many traditions belonging to the so-called folklore. Between the 2 petitions, the Commission of National Education, despite the short time span during which it could function, laid the basis for Polish higher learning. Interestingly, this board, peopled by bishops, acted very much in the spirit of the Enlightenment. It gave thereby evidence of the existence of a Catholic Enlightenment, which was to be found elsewhere too, in Bavaria, Bohemia, Austria, or Tuscany. Conversely, it gave the lie to the received wisdom of a radical enlightenment being directed against Christianity, the first step towards secularization. Pope John Paul had a clear knowledge of the fact that he put forward in his speech of 1980 at the UNESCO in Paris. He hailed from a nation which survived thanks to culture. Little wonder that he should lay the stress on cultural issues and conceived of Christianity as being, among other things, a wellspring of culture. Europe and Christianity are tied together by a strong bond. But this bond is not an identity. Christianity is older and broader than Europe. It began far from Europe on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean. It defined its dogma in Egypt, in Anatolia, present-day Turkey, and in Greece. Whereas Europe never produced Christianity, on the other hand, Christianity produced Europe and fostered its development out of the Mediterranean basin, first towards the north and the east, converting Celtic, Slavic, Baltic, and Finno-Ugric peoples, letting them enter the European concert. This was made possible by their sharing some basic principles which are Christian in origin. An important feature of this admittance was that newcomers were allowed to keep their language and mores. They were not compelled to enter the Roman Empire, and they could build independent kingdoms that were to evolve to modern nation states. This was the case for Poland, and later for Hungary and Bohemia. Europe sort of repaid its debt to Christianity by spreading it in the rest of the world, thanks to missionary activity. Let me here correct a common misunderstanding. Christian mission and European colonization were not accomplices. To be sure, the presence of Christian priests in countries in which Christian faith was only tolerated and submitted to all kinds of humiliations was made possible by Western control. Yet, colonization had economic and political aims and never aimed at spreading Christianity. Far from that. If I may choose the example of my native France, political and military authorities objected to attempts of Christian missionaries at converting local populations, especially in North Africa. John Paul II's diagnosis of the present spiritual crisis of Europe is still highly actual, even 40-odd years after his Compostela speech in 1982. Among the diseases which he called by name, some were pinpointed by earlier thinkers. Individualism, for instance, was brilliantly analyzed by Tocqueville. As for cultural issues, the Pope observed some sort of collective amnesia, a loss of cultural memory. In particular, ignorance of the true Christian dogma is especially rampant. It is even as if some people boasted about their not having an inkling of the Christian message, although they would blush in confessing their ignorance of Buddhism or Islam. Besides those rather common observations, John Paul shed more light on the present crisis when he coined the felicitous, albeit ominous phrase, culture of death, in the early 90s, and gave it a powerful orchestration in his encyclical Evangelium Vitae of 1995. The phrase has a broader compass than the so-called bioethical problems, and it captures the whole spectrum of social oppression of the weaker by the more powerful. The disease was identified by St. John Paul. So was the cure, a new evangelization, giving new hope to people tempted by despair, getting back a Christian mindset, what he called, perhaps by a rather awkward term, mentality. John Paul's emphasis on culture strikes an original note, not to say a surprising one, in the present-day concert of experts, who all give pride of place to economic and/or social questions, supposed to be the infrastructure on which everything rests. They bear witness to the lasting influence of Marxist schemes of thought, which crushes so many brains, even among people who hardly understand themselves as disciples of the German thinker. John Paul II, a culture, is the crystallized result of what he called an anthropology. He meant thereby not the scholarly discipline which plumes itself with that name, but more simply, and in fact more deeply, an all-encompassing view of what the human being is all about. Now, Europe is singled out by a definite conception of man, which strikes its roots in the Hebrew Bible and in classical Greek thought, and came to a head in the New Testament. Pope John Paul fleshed it out. Each and every human being, from its inception to his or her natural death, is a full-fledged person whose both soul and body deserve a boundless respect. This person is not the temporary incarnation of an eternal essence, but the subject of an adventure in which his or her destiny is at stake. Now, Pope John Paul II already belongs not only to the canon of sainthood, but to history. Yet, this doesn't mean that his thought should be wrapped up in a purple shroud and solemnly buried. To the contrary, his teachings still possess a thriving actuality. And this is the case for his thoughts on Europe. To repeat, he saw Europe not as a geographical concept only, but as a culture. Culture itself lying on the ground of a vision of man, Christian in origin. Pope John Paul died 15 years ago. What happened since? Did things change? Basically, not very much. But some dimensions of our present predicament received a new emphasis. Most concretely, 2 popes came after him. Both had significant utterances on Europe, be they positive or negative in nature. The first one, now emeritus, was Joseph Ratzinger, a German who was among the closest collaborators of the Polish Pope. He had far-reaching thoughts on what European culture is all about, very much in the wake of his predecessor and personal friend. The second one, Jorge Bergoglio, still in office, doesn't hail from Europe, but from a country which was by and large peopled by European immigrants. He put his finger on Europe's sore point, an aging and sterile continent whose administrations uphold policies of a so-called public health which foster the slow disappearance of their own citizenry. Let me mention 2 points. Each will somehow correspond to one of the 2 popes who came after John Paul in the chronological order. First, there is what I will call the Benedict point. We perceive in an ever clearer way that our view of man is not self-evident. Now, agnosticists of all ilk, and even card-carrying atheists in the West, and especially in Europe, live on the capital of Christian anthropology. No matter whether they know this origin, are unaware of it, or do as if they ignored it. People who come clear about the origin of the values we live upon may not be Christians. They are at least what I called Christianists, i.e. people who believe in the positive influence of Christianity on human culture, and especially Western culture, without their believing in the basic tenets of Christian faith, i.e. Jesus of Nazareth being the only begotten Son of the Heavenly Father, his having been risen from the dead, and so on. They agree to what they call the Christian values, but they are reluctant to look for their roots in faith, let alone personally to have faith in Christ. Such a phenomenon is relatively new, so that John Paul II could scarcely engage the dialogue with it. This is what was done by his immediate successor, Pope Benedict, who, still as Cardinal Ratzinger, had disputations at a very high level with leading figures of this stance like Marcello Pera in Italy and Jürgen Habermas in Germany. Those people deserve our sympathy, not because they are objective allies, to put it in communist parlance, but simply because they tell the truth when they say that Christianity's contribution to civilization was positive in nature. Moreover, that culture which Christianity made possible, i.e. Europe, deserves to be defended. The trouble is that this capital doesn't renew itself automatically. It requires maintenance. It crumbles down when it loses its underpinnings in the lived faith. Hence, my question, do we live up to this faith? My second and last point, Francis 1, is the following. We may and now ask the question not only about the essence of Europe, but about its very existence. Both aspects should be thought of together. As a notion belonging to physical geography, Europe is not endangered in its existence. It has been there for millions of years, and barring unpredictable and unlikely geological upheavals, it will last for quite a long period of time still. Yet, what we commonly mean when we mention Europe is a cultural reality. Now, cultures are not eternal. The Church has received from her divine head a promise according to which she will withstand the onslaughts of the evil one, the gates of hell. But Europe, as a definite form of culture, never received the promises of eternal life. And history is the cemetery of dead civilizations. In Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov, one of the three brothers, Ivan, the intellectual, already saw Europe as a cemetery. A very lovable cemetery, he adds, the most lovable of all cemeteries whatsoever, to be sure, but a cemetery all the same. Let me add as a rider quite a naive observation. People who lie buried in cemeteries died, for the most part, unwillingly. A tiny minority only committed suicide. Cultures, on the other hand, can't die unless people who live in them and through them want them to be done away with, or at least if they don't mind about their being swept away by the winds of history. The British historian Arnold Toynbee observed that a civilization crumbles down if, and only if, two factors pull in the same direction, external as well as internal. External powers are always present in a plural game, and they aim at asserting themselves over against each other. But they can produce their destructive effects only if inner factors are at work. Among them, on the side of people who take advantage of the civilization, a lack of confidence in its very value. The nagging question arises, is defending our way of life really worthwhile? Suppose we had to give up a part of the commodities we enjoy in order to save it, shall we accept the sacrifice? On those 2 points, reality has given the insights of Pope John Paul a new depth and relevance. May his thoughts go on helping Europe and the world at large out of the predicament they are in. Thank you so much for your attention.
Professor Brack, thank you for this first academic act in the history of the Institute of Culture. With it, you have made history, and at the same time, you led us to the deep waters and deep challenges of this project. Thank you very much, indeed. We are at the end of our program today, but in fact, it is the beginning. We hope to see you during the upcoming events, conferences, and projects organized by the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, and we hope to meet you all soon in person as well. Goodbye to all our participants online. Take care. God bless you. Thank you.